so now we're going to pass for our second guest from here, from the local school. Yeah. She's Maria Adriana Henriques. She's a coordinating professor here at the Nursing School of Lisbon. She's the president of the Technical Council and Technical Scientific Council since 2014, and she's a member of the General Council of ESEL. Her main topics of research are older people, people with chronic conditions, including nursing, diabetes, consultations at home in phases in developing complex interventions in nursing. In the last year and in their career, she has participated in research projects. She has supervised doctoral theses, master dissertations, and other topics on research and papers on research. She's a member of committees for public discussions of doctoral theses and master dissertations, and she has published several articles in peer-reviewed journals, made presentations at national scientific and international scientific meetings. She's a nursing researcher at the Institute of Saúde Ambiental, or the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Lisbon since 2015. And she's also a member of the scientific committee of the doctoral program in nursing at the University of Lisbon since 2011. She's a scholar member of the European Academy of Nursing and Science since 2012, and a member for the Agency of Assessment and Accreditation of the Higher Education in Portugal, as we known as A3ES, since 2016. So she's also a experienced researcher, and we are glad to have her contribution.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Good afternoon for all, and thank you for the commitment, for the invitation. I'm very pleased to stay here to speak about this topic. Using qualitative research methods to develop and evaluate complex intervention is a good and actual topic today. Developing and evaluation complex intervention, the new Medical Research Council guidance consider and provides a framework that clearly establishes the importance place of the quantitative analytic and experimental studies, but this guidance also clearly demonstrated the usefulness of qualitative study, exploring the experience people have of illness, health service, and treatment in order to develop theory, identify needed, and evaluate the working intervention of people and in clinical practice. Qualitative studies are also challenged too, because framework make it clear that isolation and with no clear link to pathway for action, they too have a little value for a practice discipline. Is needed work quantitative and qualitative studies in this. Same critic challenge will also apply to quantitative survey, which I also, when in beginning described the consideration and really it in context, it's not really. Where qualitative and quantitative research really on each other in the order to develop theory-based complex intervention, prepare and conduct their optical delivery, explain how the intervention work and which condition contribute in case they did not work. Okay, in this communication, I organize around it review the relationship between complex system and complex intervention, reflect on theory or model supporting complex intervention, or the value of qualitative research on complex intervention in early, and describe the elements and compounds the complex intervention, and conclude present on example the ongoing project you develop in here. Now, complex adaptive system is a good example, or many people consider that healthcare is the example par excellence for a complex adaptive system. The context has many diversity, primary care, hospitals, schools, home care, and the system are patient, family, multi-agent, interdependent, and connect, and the diversity, many elements of large elements of connection consider the system complex. Adaptive to change. The system will be adapting to circumstances over time. Behavior will not necessarily the predictable. The sum of the parts will greater and different from the individual elements make up the system. And inputs and outputs will not match because relationships within the system are not strengthened forward. They are not no linear considered. Okay, indeed. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Indeed, complex intervention contains several interactions because the relationship in complex system and complex intervention, you know. Complex intervention is defined as intervention with several interaction compounds, interaction and synergy between different compounds, between characteristics of the context, and needed to understand the impact of the other mediators and moderator of the effect of the intervention. It is necessary to understand the number of declaration compounds with experimental and control intervention, number and difficulty of behavior required of those delivering and receiving the intervention, number of groups of organizational level target by the intervention, and so on. So, development and evaluation complex intervention, it's a strong process of exploring not just of the way their intervention work, but how it's work and what people and family population and in what circumstances in context it is applied. It's necessary you understand this, okay? And I consider if the people live in all this system, in all this condition and complexity, perhaps all intervention with people around your health is complex. And you have many examples of the service delivery and organizational or intervention directed health professional or intervention directed of individual patient consider the health promotion or and so on in the cognitive behavior therapy. Many examples you consider is necessary. You have complex intervention, develop and evaluation this. And the other, and you agree, we do all agree with me, it's necessary you have evidence-based care if necessary use and have care is effective, safe, and efficient. All people consider necessary you provide patient-centered care. All people apply this evidence, and technology today is necessary to consider quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methodology to measure or inform the understanding of a problem, the development of intervention, and understanding of how an intervention is delivered by care provider and received by people. It's necessary you understand when people needed the intervention and receive this intervention. This is the framework, you know, about the framework of the Medical Research Council, and different phases in development, feasibility and piloting, evaluation and implementation. In all phases is necessary qualitative study, not only a quantitative study. It's important to identify, when you identify the evidence, the review, quantitative and qualitative review and integrated this. Or when you identify or develop the theory, when you consider necessary, you know the elements of this theory, or in feasible and piloting, the process, you understand or not this process, and evaluation when you design a systematic review and randomized control trial as necessary to understand what the people consider the significance of the outcomes is important. This many publication around the world now and the complex intervention in the world, and many examples you have when you have these two paradigms, qualitative and quantitative, and it's not word, but is important stay in the completed this in same time, and is qualitative evaluation of intervention, providing insight into the intervention process and feasibility and acceptability of the intervention to improve and adapt intervention to have value for people. It is important to explore how qualitative data can be collected in the analysis to understand of feasibility and this acceptability. And use of the qualitative research is very important to alongside randomized control trial to healthcare intervention, to have a potential to contribute to develop this evaluation for people. I need this now. Mixed methodology research, I think is in last decades, Creswell consider very important this mixed methodology. Because in this process, the perspective of qualitative evidence can help explain, interpret, and apply the quantitative results. And it is important how and why this intervention is good for the people. I think it's the center of this erg, this important using of mixed methodology study for these several consideration. And it's, I think mixed methodology are especially useful in understand this contradiction between quantitative and qualitative finding. Some example when you develop a pragmatic randomized control trial and simultaneously a case study to understand this, or when Lorraine and Clark use hermeneutic methodology to understand this complex intervention, or when you needed to perform a qualitative evaluation in the implement process, is needed this to understand and to this value. I think it's when you think the implementation or you understand the implementation of a complex intervention in primary care, you needed to understand this. And in all phases of this, or systematic review, or when you need it for the evidence, and qualitative and quantitative review question completely the evidence, or study using qualitative and quantitative research design complete this, or study using both techniques for collecting and data is more completely, and or defending you interpret and measure and interpret that. And is needed too when you consider explain the theory and mapping an intervention is needed to a specific quantitative and qualitative. Or when you modeling a process and outcomes in different phases. In this moment, you develop a project in the virtual assistant to facilitate self-care of that people with type 2 diabetes. And you consider different methodology to develop this intervention and adapt the different modeling process to active the self-care of people, and when you understand, you use the capability, the motivation, the opportunity of people to change behavior. In this case is necessary. You have two types of this. Oops. Or you prepare a feasible and a pilot study. I realized in the last study, adherence and medication management for old people, and around indeed use focus group or observation or semi-structured intervention to understand the significance of when people take different medication, or what significance of this? I don't know if the table is correct, but it's my example in this time. I don't know, it's when I look for this, my table is the good example. When I look the last conferences, I know. Okay, in the evaluation phases, it's typical the design of randomized control trial, and I go. But in the process evaluation of complex interventions, you need it to complement this with qualitative observation, and needed really consider the importance of the explication of this completely the analysis and significance for people. But I think it's very, very important for consideration this and use this is for my consideration require a multidisciplinary team of researchers conducting the high qualitative mixed methodology require a multidisciplinary team, a very strong expertise for the area of quantitative and qualitative area, because I think it's impossible you have a good expertise when you are or qualitative or quantitative. But if it's possible, people and researchers work together in the multidisciplinary team, is good for people you have needed for this intervention. And I think it's explained very important to clarify the clinical practice in different areas, or nurses, or medicine, or pharmacists, or social work. I think it's important, this condition, and I think it's when people live comfortable discussing this different paradigm, I think the world is better for the people in the perspective of the research. You know, dissemination is a good example. You have a perspective of the different framework for all, and different qualitative or quantitative analysis. An example of the this consideration in this use of the framework is necessary. You have a theory of change to implement the complex intervention, and what the important considered in different phases, and reinforce the idea is important in all time, in all phases, the different types of studies. And now I conclude present different titles of ongoing projects you are involved around the person with dementia, family caregiver, or effectiveness of an overweight and obesity prevention program in preschool or children, or family intervention of symptom management in the child with asthma, and so on and so on. Another one, caring for old person with oncological diseases and of this family, or medication management by old people in transition for hospital to home. Thank you very much for me, and consider the importance of the qualitative and quantitative methodology in this development of complex intervention. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Adriana, for your presentation. Professor Adriana showed us a picture about researching on complex intervention, how to use qualitative research and mixed methods research to build evidence to sustain practice on complex interventions. We are seeing qualitative research growing within health research that was long dominated by quantitative studies, right? By clinical studies and so on. But we must bear in mind that healthcare is for the people, by the people. So if we are investing in patient-centered care, we must know what patients feel and what patients think, and also what the professionals feel and think. So it was a very useful presentation. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to ask the audience if they want to do some questions to our speaker. Thank you.
Thanks for a really interesting discussion. I think something where qualitative methods have such a critical place, especially on the process side. You didn't mention the new Cochrane guidance on synthesizing qualitative data into systematic reviews or these sort of larger scale reviews. How key do you think that new guidance will be? What is its role in this? And what do you think are the effects of that on those doing qualitative research here to ensure that their work is included, does pass into these sort of broader reviews?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think it's very, very important included. When I look for the date, I understand what people said, because when I have a percent number, or when I compare control intervention, and it's a good value for this, but what significant for people? For me, this is important, not only the number. I'm a quantitative paradigm research, but when I look for today, when I look for the number, it's important, or focus group, or interview, or observed, or in the expression of people said, what the perspective and the significance of this in the number for people. For me, it's more important. When I ask old people, you take your medicines, but what the significance for this? And complete the real number, how significant when people talk about this. I don't know. I just.
Do you personally use the Cochrane guidance?
Yes, Cochrane. Yes,
for systematic synthesis.
In this moment, Cochrane use the different types of when look perhaps the quantitative evidence, and look for the qualitative evidence too, and when or parallel or use a parallel significance of quantitative and qualitative, and look for funding in the final, or perhaps a systematic review of Cochrane with the clinical trial around the pain, perhaps in the evidence of pain in child. But it's not complete. The randomized control trial around it is Cochrane quantitative. But when I go to the look for the review and systematic review around it qualitative date, you understand what the significance of this control of the pain in the specific qualitative condition. And in this moment, you have complete evidence with a randomized control trial, you have a perspective of the value of the outcome, and the other hand, you look for the evidence around it, qualitative date, and complete this. And now I think it's complete, the evidence around the comprehensive evidence around it, the pain of child. It's my perspective.
Thank you. It's just that thing of there's brand new guidance just come out from Cochrane in May this year. So they've really revised and updated the guidance for incorporating qualitative review. So
Cochrane is recent
to emphasise
in
that being that publication is really significant in this area.
It's recent. Cochrane is recent, included the chapter, I think 21, in the tutorial to consider this importance of the evidence of the qualitative. Okay, thank you.
Does anyone has more questions? No? So thank you for your presence. I will ask you to stay for 5 minutes so we can do our closing session. It will be a short closing session, so please stay in your seats.
Good afternoon, everyone. It seems to me that many participants have already left our school. Maybe they returned home or they are enjoying our beautiful city. So, just a few words to the close of this conference. First of all, I would like to highlight the excellent program and the quality of speakers. I'm sure they provided a great opportunity for development of all participants. Next, I would like to congratulate all the commissions and staff and students and former students of the SL who participate in the conference. Because they have done hard work and huge commitment with the conference. So thank you to all. Finally, I hope that all of you felt welcome in our school and that our facilities and staff and their work contributed to a great conference for all of you. So, we will do better next time, I'm sure, but you will always be welcome in our school. Thank you, all of you.
Hello again. Your faces, wow. Yeah, tired? No.
No.
Yeah, no. Thank you for your presence, and SL. Fantastic team. Thank you again. You finished the WCKR with a small video. I don't speak more. 5 minutes, a video with image of these 3 days. Please wait 5 minutes. David, tell me 5 minutes, yes? Yeah? David, when you want to start? Okay, 3 minutes. Whoa. Okay. Maybe. Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like giving up, but I just can't. It isn't in my blood.